What's that verse? 13. Yatha prakashayat eka Krishnam lokam imam Ravi Kshetram kshetri tata Krishnam prakashayati bharata yaha prakashayat eka Krishnam lokam imam Ravi Krishnam kshetri tata Krishnam prakashayati bharata. Somebody?
Yatha prakashayati ekaha Krishnam lokam imam ravihi Kshetram kshetri tatha Krishnam prakashayati bharata.
Maybe a lady? A lady? Mataji? Okay. O son of Bharata, as the sun alone illuminates all this universe, so does a living entity, one within the body, illuminate the entire body with consciousness. There are various theories regarding consciousness. Here in Bhagavad-GIta, the example of the sun and the sunshine is given. As the sun is situated in one place, but is illuminating the whole universe, so a small particle of spirit soul, all those situated in the heart of his body, is illuminating the whole body by consciousness. Thus consciousness is a proof of the existence of the soul, as sunshine or light is a proof of the existence of the sun. When the soul is present in the body, there is consciousness all over the body, and as soon as the soul has passed from the body, there is no more consciousness. This can be easily understood by every intelligent man. Therefore, consciousness is product of the combination of matter. It is a symptom, it's not a product of matter. It is a symptom of the living entity. The consciousness of the living entity, although qualitatively one with the supreme consciousness, is not supreme because the consciousness of one particular body does not share that of another body. But the super soul, which is situated in all bodies, as a friend of the individual soul, is conscious of all body. That is the difference between the supreme consciousness and individual consciousness. Omagyan Timirandas Yagananjala Slakaya Chaksurum Nitamina Tasmai Sri Chaitanya Mano Vistam Stapitamina Bhutale Swayam Rupakaram. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So we are talking about consciousness. There is consciousness with every being. There's consciousness with every being. Dog, if you pinch a dog, he will cry. Like if you pinch a baby, it will cry. And even plants. I remember, what should I do, loud? Like this? Okay. Just like when I went to school, we had one biology teacher. She was a very intelligent lady, very nice. She was hunchbacked, I remember, but she was very nice. So one time she came with 2 tomato plants, and we had a long window in this classroom. She put one here and one there. So they got the same care, the same water, the same sunshine, everything the same, but there was a difference in consciousness. She assembled the whole classroom to go to first this plant. Say, you're nasty, you look horrible, we hate you. Hate, hate, hate the whole class. The plant went down like this. Good morning, you're wonderful, you're the most wonderful plant we've ever seen. Oh, you look so great, you're wonderful, you're so nice, 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 nice. We love you, we love you, we love. She went like this, you know. After 1 week of this treatment, that one died. She died of grief because she was not appreciated. You see? You see, even plants, one bosey, I forgot the name, one Indian bosey has proven this in a long time, that plants have consciousness. And so the consciousness is everywhere, in every tree, in every horse, in every cow, in every bullock, and in you and me. And in fact, even in communist time in East Germany, you might know I come from Germany originally, there was a trial made in Humboldt University, one of the most famous universities in Europe, that professor, he took people who put a bed of a person who was dying on a scale. And when he was leaving the body, he became more heavy. And he had 10,000 cases of people dying on the scale. And he came to the same conclusion: as soon as something is happening, something is missing, the body becomes more heavy. And so that's the soul right there. You know, the soul is carrying the body. If somebody is very enlightened, he may even hover. Like when Srila Prabhupada, in two occasions, in one case in the house of John Lennon, the Beatle John Lennon. So Yamuna walked with Prabhupada, behind Prabhupada. It was a muddy kind of road, and she saw no footprints. And she looked behind herself, she saw her own footprints. This happened 2 times that people have seen Prabhupada didn't leave footprints, because, you know, he was a highly enlightened person. Many times we have seen that people who are highly enlightened, they can fly, they can levitate. There's a famous saint in Christian, Roman Catholic religion. He would levitate. What was his name? Something of, I don't get it, I forget it. He was levitating to the ceiling as soon as he started talking about God. He would levitate. 300 flights are recorded of this saint. Joseph of Cupertino. Cupertino is a town in Italy. Joseph. And the whole, in the room, in the temple room, there are these hooks to pull him down, to get him down on the platform of normal human beings so that he can continue preaching. So many examples. Some people can walk on the water. So many examples. So the soul is penetrating this body with consciousness. What is the connection between the soul and the body? If there is any connection, what is the connection? How is the soul connected to the body? Anybody knows? It's right in this verse. By consciousness. By consciousness. There's no other connection, because we are not the body. We, the soul, are not the body. Just like even if you want to scratch your head, how is that possible? You're not the body. How do you scratch your head? Like this guy now, he touches his nose. How did he do that? You're not the body, right? How did he do that? He scratches his like this. How does he do that? You're not the body. Because the soul is conscious of the body. You, the soul in the body, is conscious of the body. And so I feel now, right now, to be honest, an itch here. And so my hand goes up there and scratches. This is not possible without the help of the super soul. Not possible. This is what I'm doing right now. This is only possible with the super soul. The super soul translates the desire of a living being namely I feel uncomfortable and therefore I want to scratch my head, into action with the help of the devas. With the help of the devas. That is what actually takes place. That you, if you have the desire to scratch your head, Krishna living in your heart as super soul understands your desire. Nitya Nityananam Chetana Chetananam. He fulfills the desires of the living entities. So Krishna goes to the phone and calls the demigods. Hello, Hare Krishna, this is Krishna. Bhagavad-gita. Can you please lift the hand of this Pirthu Das? Prabhu, he wants to scratch his head on the left side. Yes, Bhagavan. The hand. This is how it works. We're not the doer. We're not the doer. It's Krishna, by Krishna's grace, I can scratch my head. Not possible. You can't do that without Krishna. And so the signals, the desire is translated into action within split seconds. Split seconds, so fast. If I would desire to scratch my head and then after 5 minutes the hand would go up, I would understand better. But because it's so fast, it's all the super soul is doing this, It translates our desire into immediate action. You cannot scratch your head, you cannot do anything without the super soul. He is the ability in man. Krishna says in Bhagavad-gita, he's the strength of the strong. He's the intelligence of the intelligent. Without the super soul, nothing works. And why is a cow able to pick a particular herb out of a huge pile of grass, of hay? Super soul tells him, go here, go there. By the super soul, everything is going on. And nobody knows about it, nobody understands it, because people are so absorbed in the bodily concept of life. And I'm the body. We're not the body, we're the soul. And that is what is carried in grand procession to the grave. In Christian religion, for example, it's just a bag of chemicals. The chemicals. I remember when my brother died, my mother, she took the best blankets that she had and wrapped his feet into this blanket. And I asked her, Mother, why you do this? He's dead. He said, just in case he's freezing. You see, so the nice mohair blanket went down in the grave. So people in general don't have a deep understanding of the connection between the soul and the super soul and the living entity. Kshetragyam sapimam vidi sava kshetreshu bharata. Kshetragyam, the knower of the body. I'm the knower of the body. I know my body. Somebody. Kshetram sapimam. Sava kshetreshu bharata. But Krishna knows the bodies of all living beings. That living being who knows of everybody's thinking, feeling and willing at everybody, at every single person, of every cow in the stable, of every horse in the yard. That's Krishna. Krishna is so huge. It's so huge. It's such a huge living energy. And he knows all the different things. He knows your mind. He knows exactly what you're thinking, what you're feeling, you're willing, everything Krishna knows. That's the amazing thing. His hands are everywhere, his eyes are everywhere, his feet are everywhere. In this way the super soul exists. That's what Krishna says in Bhagavad-gita. Super soul exists. And therefore, as a super soul, he's witnessing the activities of every living entity. He records the activities of a living entity. And so therefore, when people die, these records are present, like in a court case, they're present. And you can't say, well, that didn't happen, I really didn't steal. Or I didn't do this, I didn't do that. There's no such a thing. Everything is recorded. And you will see at the time of death, our whole life coming, racing by, like in the flesh. I had a near-death experience. I saw this actually. My whole life went through my head within seconds. And I said, oh my God, give me another chance. And I got another chance. That's why I'm sitting here. You see? So this is what's going on in our connection to the super soul. The super soul is everywhere in every living being. And so even in plants react to it, the way how we treat them. If we treat somebody with love, it will fructify. He will feel it, directly or indirectly. There was a man in Germany, a boy, he listened to a class. I gave a class, and we talked about forgiveness, that we have to forgive. And so the boy came after the class to me and said, how can I forgive my father? He beat me from childhood on with his stick. How can I forgive him? You tell me. I can't forgive him. I said, what happened? I said, well, I left ultimately the house in anger. I didn't want to see him again for the rest of my life. And so I lived separate from my dad since 20 years. I said, you should change that. I said, how? With knowledge. You have to understand that you needed to be beaten due to the activities of a previous life. Whatever you do to others comes back to you. No doubt about it. Nobody can suffer more than he caused to others. Not possible, not even the demons. You suffer exactly what you enter a cycle of violence. Like the older kids in school beat up the younger kids. Why? Because when they were young, they were beaten by the older kids. So we are caught in a cycle of violence. And so I explained to him that the fact is that you caused this suffering yourself in a previous life. Because everyone reaps what he sows. Everybody drinks his own cup. So he said, that's a tough one. He said, well, give it a try. Think about your father and forgive him. If he would not have beaten you, somebody else would have beaten you. You needed to suffer a certain amount of suffering. And your father was just an instrument of your suffering. Could have been anybody else. You know? So he said, let me think about that. And he was leaving the temple. It was 8 o'clock like now. And so the next morning he called me. At 9 o'clock, bubbling with excitement, he said, I have not talked with my father 20 years. Today at 9 o'clock, the telephone rang. My father was on the phone. He said, my dear boy, I feel very sorry. I'm gradually getting old and I will die. But I want to fix our relationship. It was very wrong that I've beaten you. Please forgive me. And the boy said, Father, I thought about it and I forgave you. He said, but I have one question. When did you think about that? When did you have these thoughts to call me and apologize? When did that happen? He said, yesterday evening. He said, what time? Father said, 8 o'clock. That was the moment he forgave his father. The father lives 350 kilometers north in Hamburg. This boy is in Leipzig, you know. So it works like magic that we have to accept suffering, any type of suffering, as our own results of our own activities. There's nobody else responsible for it. And if we can do that, then we can go on with our life. Otherwise, we become prisoners of our past. That for the rest of our life, we will be licking our wounds, living in the past, and not thinking of the future, being completely entangled in the past, you know, and that means we're not really living. So, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he said once one time, and Srila Prabhupada said the same thing. Sorry, I'm so sore in my throat. This is the cause of it. He said, the past is history. There's nothing you can do about it. You can learn from the past. That's the only thing the past is useful for. You can, I did this in the past, now I'm getting that. You know, but otherwise the past has no use, it's gone. Can't be changed. So the future, what can you do about the future? You don't know about the future. Anything can happen. But the presence right now, Srila Prabhupada said, it is the present given to you by God. It's the present. Because you can do something about it. Krishna means present. He's in the present. He's not in the past, he's not in the future. As far as our life is concerned, he's right here. And so wisdom means that we see things through the eyes of Scripture, not through our own mental speculation. Mental speculation will not help us. We were discussing the other week, even Albert Einstein, he was a very intelligent man. You know, he would sleep 10 hours to rest his brain. And he developed this formula of, relativity, right? But he had no idea of God. He was in complete ignorance about it. He said, there may be some energy. He said, I marvel the universe. He said, there may be some things that we don't know. He said, surely there is no personal God, he said. So it's just because he had this upbringing in a religion, in Western religiosity, which is not reasonable. There's no concept of soul. Neither in Christian religion, nor in Muslim religion, nor in Jewish religion. There's no concept, no defined concept of soul. It doesn't exist. They think that what is the beginning of your life? It's the time of conception. That's it. And if you believe, like in Catholic religion, I come from Catholic religion, if you believe there's a pre-existence of the soul, you're doomed. There's a sentence, an edict in the church. He who believes in the pre-existence of the soul will go to hell. It means Krishna goes to hell, and Vyasadeva goes to hell, Srila Prabhupada goes to hell. We all go to hell, we're in good association. You know, it's just bizarre. Even tribal people in our European history believed in reincarnation. Even they, you know. Julius Caesar, the emperor, said in his book, De Bello Gallico, the war against the Celtic people in France. The Roman Empire was very big. It fought all these people and said they believe that the soul is living in every creature and the soul can take one body after another. This was a novelty for him. So that knowledge has been completely forgotten and covered by a solid layer of ignorance, which is Western religiosity. Complete no Oma Gyanti Miranda Syaganadana Salaka, nothing of this sort of thing. You know, not very enlightened. Religion has to be reasonable. And I became an atheist after studying Western religiosity. Unfortunately enough, I then realized that, as explained by Buddha, that as much as our future life is a result of this life is nothing but the result of a previous life. When I read that, it was like a thunderbolt on my head, you know. I said, that's it. This makes sense. And you just have to read the second chapter of Bhagavad-Gita. For the soul, there's never birth nor death. Having once been, will he never cease to be. Krishna says, never was a time that I do not exist, nor you, nor all this living being, nor will there be a time that we will cease to be. Whole soul is explained in the second chapter of Bhagavad-Gita. And unless we understand the nature of the soul, and that the soul is experiencing so many things, good things and bad things, very bad things, huge suffering, unless we understand the nature of the soul, we will never be able to understand why we suffer. Normally, our suffering doesn't come within 5 minutes. There's no such a thing like instant karma. You do something and immediately there's a result. It takes at least a lifetime. My father, he was in a concentration camp in Germany. He was a prisoner because he was in resistance to Nazi Germany. And so when he was young, he told me, he was eating sandwiches with his friend in the break, in the schoolyard. The friend didn't like the bread, and he kicked it over the fence with his foot. And my father, being a religious boy, he said, you cannot do that. That bread is given by God. And this boy laughed. He said, there's no such a thing like a God. That was it. They didn't see each other for 40 years. After 40 years, they happened to meet in the same concentration camp. They were both prisoners, political prisoners. And in fact, the food was so bad, just potato soup, water and potatoes basically speaking, that many people starved to death. Many, by the thousands. And so it so happened that this boy, this man that kicked the bread over the fence, was lying to die. And he was just about to die when a doctor came by. And he said, one slice of bread would have saved this man. And he would turn to my father and say, William, remember that, remember that. And my father said, yes, I remember. And my father's commentary was that the mills of God grind very slow, but very precise. Like if you have a mill, right? It grinds. The mills of God grind very slow, but very precise. Krishna never so he found the result of mistreating something that is clearly God-given. He died in starvation, ultimately. So that's when you experience karma in your own life. But mostly it takes one life, two lives. And all of a sudden, it's like planting a seed. Papa, the seed is planted in sin. And then gradually it turns into a sprout. Then it turns into a plant. Then it turns into a tree. And that tree bears a fruit, like a coconut. And you walk in this coconut forest, and all of a sudden, bang, a coconut ends up on your head. And you don't know why. You don't know why. If you were able to connect with the original seed, you can understand exactly why. There's a reason for it. You know, if you cause trouble to others, trouble will come to you. If you love, love will come to you. If you spread hatred, it will come to you. And you see that generally in this world, many people are caught in a cycle of violence. In one life, somebody is a victim, and he feels unjustly treated. And from that comes anger. Anger arises. In his next life, he will be a perpetrator, full of anger. And he will make somebody else suffer. And because of that, again, he's a victim in his next life. So people go in between being a victim, in the victim role, to the perpetrator role, indefinitely, unless they actually forgive. Unless they actually take responsibility for their suffering. That's the point. That frees us. Not only from our own destiny, it frees us to our connection to our abuser. It frees us. We take ownership of suffering. And that's what devotees do. When they suffer, they see Krishna's hands there. It's always a long arm of Krishna. You cannot see why exactly, but you know that it's Krishna who comes in the form of distress. That's what it is, you know, to free us from our karmic predicament. In that sense, even suffering is Krishna's mercy. Because ultimately he wants that we go back to him. We return to him. And unless people suffer, they will not turn to God. You know, like for example, I flew in one time from Dublin Island to Boston, which is practically speaking an Irish colony. And the plane, you know, the plane all of a sudden, the captain said, please cross your seatbelt, we're going to the really bad turbulence. And the plane was going here and there, and one priest stood up and said, let us all pray to Jesus now. And all people pulled their little rosary out and started. He said he was leading them in prayer. Everybody prayed, this and that prayed, you know. And then gradually, the plane became peaceful again. The captain came on the intercom and says, "We are all right now." All hell broke out. People started calling the stewardess left and right. Everybody wanted to drink whiskey. Right after that, God was all forgotten. As long as there was suffering, people were. That's why we have to be more humble than a blade of grass. If you step on grass, the grass is humble, but not humble enough, it comes up again. So more humble than the grass means to stay down, to always stay humble. That we are just trying to please Krishna with our life somehow or other. That's the idea. And if we have suffering in our life, we see this through the eyes of Scripture. We have to understand life through the eyes of Scripture. This is the only way to understand life. Otherwise, you become a prey to mental speculation. You don't know. And even somebody as smart as Albert Einstein couldn't figure it out. That actually everybody eats his own soup. Prabhupada used to give the example, if you point your finger to somebody, 3 fingers point towards yourself. That's Prabhupada's example. 3 fingers point. So we have to look at ourselves. We see, in the Bible it says, you see the speck of dust in your brother's eye, but you don't see the beam of wood in your own. Therefore, take the beam of wood out of your own eye first, and then you will not see the speck in your brother's eye. You won't dwell on that. You see that actually every living entity tries to go in some way, making his way to Krishna, sooner or later, particularly devotees. They're working on it, So we have to have that humility and see that everything is under Krishna's control. And if we encounter suffering, then there's this famous verse, Tatino Kampam Sukshamikshamano, that one who accepts voluntarily the suffering that comes to him as Krishna's mercy, he becomes a candidate for liberation. That's what it is. Instead of blaming anybody else. Nature of human beings is to blame everybody else, not to take responsibility. That's the nature of human beings, but that's a cop-out. We have to understand that you cannot suffer without your involvement. Like there's a saying that as a car, bullock car, has 2 wheels. One is fate, and the other one is your own activity. The own activity, every bullock cart has 2 wheels. So one of them is fate. That means the past, what is coming to you, due to your own doing. The other one is your own doing, your papa, So in the same way, reactions come to us, and it is only intelligent to see how whatever happens to us is nobody's fault except our own. That's why Krishna says, who is the greatest enemy of a living being? The mind. The mind. The mind is Krishna says, the mind can be your friend or the greatest enemy. Like, for example, you come home in the evening as a student, you want to go to bed early because you want to get up the next day early to go to the university. That's an intelligent decision. You have to get up early. Then you come into your home. There's a smell there, beautiful. The nose smells something beautiful. You say, oh, that smells very nice. Let me go to the fridge. You open the fridge and you see pizza. And so now this dialogue happens. Intelligence said, don't go near pizza at night. You want to get up early in the morning. Come on. The mind says, just a little piece. Senses says, yes. I want to eat pizza. Let's eat pizza. Don't be so harsh on yourself. Mind says, yes, let's eat. Feels good. If it feels good, do it. This is how people act. Seeing the world through their mind and through their senses. And causing a lot of anxiety to themselves and others. Just like the President of the United States, one of the previous presidents was asked, why did he go to Iraq? to cause a war. He said, well, if it feels good, do it. That was his argument. If it feels good, do it. 1 million people died. 1 million people. Because it feels good, so let's do it. So we cannot listen to our mind and our senses. They are always in cahoots. They're always together. Senses want to enjoy, mind wants to enjoy. And the intelligence is that possibly can regulate the mind and the senses. And if you want to achieve something in this world, whatever it may be, becoming a big runner, becoming a big this, a big that, you want to become a great scholar, you have to work. That means you have to subdue, not listen to the mind and to the senses. That's the idea. That we are not being bewildered by sense perception. Rather than saying, well, let me not eat that pizza so that I can go to the university, work in the university, get a degree, and this way have a basis for my life. Otherwise you enjoy your senses all the time, you go nowhere. Like a drunkard on the street. He's just enjoying his senses like a hippie. He's not getting anywhere. So it is important to understand that the mind and the senses are like thieves. They're like thieves. You want to chant Hare Krishna tomorrow morning. Now and chant. You sit down. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And then the mind and the senses, they come, and drag you away. And the whole round, you think about something else. And then you realize, okay, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. And then again, the mind knocks at your door and carries you to another direction. Always. It's the mind and the senses. What you smell, what you see, is carrying our intelligence away, ultimately. So we have to understand that what is consciousness and how much is consciousness involved in our life at every moment. And how he can do this, what this boy Lalita just did, how can he do that? Only by the mercy of the Super Soul. No other way. You cannot see anything without the Super Soul. You cannot experience anything without the Super Soul. The Super Soul is limiting your perception, what you can perceive at every moment. That's why even when Krishna was dancing with the gopis, one gopi could not see any other gopi, because Krishna can limit one's perception. And so our perception of reality is very limited in this material world. But as we keep on going, practicing Krishna consciousness, our perception is extended. And so ultimately we can even see Krishna by our service. Only by undivided devotion service can I be stood as I am, standing before you. So we can advance in Krishna consciousness when we have Krishna's mercy. And that mercy doesn't come on a silver plate. We have to do our best, and then Krishna will do the rest. This is a mechanism, right? We have to do our best, then Krishna does the rest. There was an example that we had a temple in Boston, Massachusetts, in America. And the devotees there, that had not much money, they took all the money they had and decorated the altar very gorgeously with flowers. And they sent a picture to Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhupada calls them and said, how can you afford so many flowers? How can you be so rich? He said, Prabhupada, we don't have money. So what did he do? So we thought, well, let's decorate Krishna very beautiful and let him take care of us. From now on, we are completely surrendered. And Prabhupada said, that is a nice idea, but we have to do the work, and then Krishna will help us. We have to do the work. Look at Prabhupada, how much he worked. That this temple is there is Krishna's mercy, but it didn't come from nothing. Very hard work, Sometimes some of our devotees work very hard, and because of that they get good results in Krishna consciousness. So we have to think like that it's not that we can just stand there and, my dear Lord, I stand there like this, please send me your mercy. It doesn't work, We have to deserve the mercy of God. by our seva. So I just get the signal. It's only 4 minutes left. Anybody has a question? Come on. Come on, baby, light my fire.
Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you for wonderful class, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, I just wanted to know, in one place in scriptures, I heard that the soul is present in body.
You have to come here and talk in my left ear. The left, not that one, this one. You have to come here. This ear. That's the problem when you get older. What? Soul is present in body. It's what? Soul is present in body. So without the super soul sanction, the soul is not sufficient to act properly. I heard in one place. So, but soul is also part and parcel of Lord and having the nature of Satchidanand. Right.
So how it is that he is not act independently?
Because Krishna limits our abilities, his ability in man. So he increases our ability or he decreases our ability according to our action. You know? So if Krishna wants you to see him, you can see him from one second to another. If Krishna doesn't want to do it, there's nothing you can do. So you can take a bullock. If you put a bullock here in the temple room, what does he see? We open now the form. We can see Vanitai here. Bullock cannot see. Because his perception is limited by the super soul. He cannot understand. So we are depending on the super soul at every moment. With the senses are knowledge, they acquire knowledge. But to interpret that into fact or into fact, we need a super soul at every moment. This is how a bird knows how to fly to the south in winter. In Europe, all the birds are flying to Spain and from there to Africa. Because if you go to the southern tip of Spain, you can see Africa 4 miles away. So all the birds in Europe, they gather and they fly over this little closest distance to Africa and they camp out in summer, in winter, in Africa, by the super soul. And people don't understand how is that possible. It's a super soul. Another question? Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Well, wait a minute, let's say a little kirtan.